Hey, what's up everybody? This is Jose from Florida Hood Blogs. Have you been thinking about moving to Spring Hill, Florida? A lot of people are choosing Spring Hill as a place to move to because of its affordability. In 2015-2016, I almost moved from Naples, Florida to Spring Hill, and it was the biggest mistake of my life not moving there because the real estate almost doubled. Yes, the real estate almost doubled. However, the profits have already been made, and it's not likely that the real estate is going to double again there. So, what is the reality of moving to Spring Hill? We're going to talk about crime, we're going to talk about affordability, we're going to get into detail about this town, which I am very familiar with. Like I said, I really even just about consider moving there myself, so I know a lot about the town. I researched it well. I had a business before, and I ended up in Spring Hill quite often because of it, so I'm really familiar with the area. And I've noticed a lot of people have been asking me on my channel about Spring Hill, so I thought it was a great video topic. I don't have any drive around videos of Spring Hill yet. I'll get them for you guys in the future. However, driving around this town, even for a week or two, isn't going to give you a real perspective on the town. You have to know the town a little bit deeper than that. When you drive around, all the houses are new. It looks like a beautiful suburb. It looks amazing. However, most of the problems that you're going to find are not going to be underlined in the beauty of the houses and the rolling hills. Some of the problems that you're going to encounter are going to things you're going to encounter over time. That's why for a lot of people, Spring Hill can be a disappointment because their expectations were set so high for the place. For most people, the biggest disappointment that they find is going to be with crime. Now, it's not a hood, it's not ghetto, it's not a hood, it's not a slum, it's a really nice place. However, there's a lot of crime to contend with. The reason being how much drug use there is in the area. It's a very simple, bland area. There's not really a lot to do. And the people, well, there are things to do. They just don't appreciate the things there are to do. The area is countryside, rolling hills, beautiful oak trees and horse country. It's a really beautiful area. However, most of the people that move to Spring Hill are coming from places like the Northeast, and they don't really have an appreciation for the natural things of Florida. They come here thinking that they're going to do better than they do. They end up being disappointed, and they end up in a cycle of drugs. And you're going to encounter that a lot of the times the people are really drugged out. You can just look at them and you can tell that they have no self-respect. Here in Naples, where I live, the young people wear new clothes, they dress nice, they're healthy, people exercise. You're going to notice that in Spring Hill, people just don't have a lot of respect for their bodies. They may be overweight, or they may be covered in tattoos. Hey, nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that's wrong. But in general, you can see that there's a lot of smokers, a lot of people that are heavily tattooed, and not the type of the tattoo that's attractive, the type of tattoo that says, you've pretty much given up on life at this point. And it's just, I don't know, a lot of times you almost get a feeling that there's no self-respect, and the fact that so many people are on drugs kind of testifies to that. Guys, this is an important subject. This is going to determine the future of people, where they live, what schools their kids are going to go to. I cannot be politically correct. So in this video, we're going to have to be a little bit blunt about a few things. I don't like to do this. This video is not about entertainment. This video is really about people's future. There's a little bit of curiosity. You might be curious to the place, so for you it might be entertainment. But there's a lot of people that are really considering moving to this town, so we can't be politically correct. We have to just kind of cut through it and be real. And I'm going to be real with you guys. That's why you watch my channel. If I was a realtor telling you these things, you wouldn't believe me. If I was some type of development company trying to sell you a new home, you probably wouldn't believe me. I'm a real life person who considered moving to Spring Hill, and I'll admit it was the biggest mistake of my life. I could have bought a house that would be worth twice as much today as when I bought it. And my Naples property hasn't appreciated the same way. However, that doesn't mean that in the future prices in Spring Hill are going to double again. That's not realistic anymore. So just because your friends from New York moved to Spring Hill and their real estate investment doubled, that doesn't mean yours is going to double. It's a different environment now. There aren't empty houses left over right now. It's mostly, they're building new houses around the Spring Hill area because they've kind of ran out of space. One of the things that you're going to encounter with why people get misled about Spring Hill, I'm not going to use the R word but I am going to use the word prejudice. People are prejudiced and they're not aware of it. They think that a bad hood has to be Hispanic or has to be black, and they're going to come into a surprise that there are some very trashy, poor, dangerous, undesirable white neighborhoods in Florida, and you're going to find that in the Spring Hill vicinity. They think because all the houses are new, it's a prejudice, that they come from a place where houses were built in the 1800s and people still live in them. They think all the houses are new and all the people are white. It must be a perfect little white heaven. And they don't know that these people that live in these places are drugged out, have no self-respect, and are pretty much just bad people. A lot of them are, not all of them, but a lot of them are. And because they have a prejudice, they look at the area and they say, oh, it's new houses, it's all white people, it's this perfect little white heaven. And when they get here and they're in line next to somebody at a Walmart and they think they're going to get lice because the person behind them looks like they have lice, they're scratching their head and they're close enough to you where if they did have lice, they're going to get on you, then they realize, maybe this wasn't the best idea. So if you have a prejudice, you're going to come into some surprises because things are not the way they seem. One thing I'll tell you about Florida, like this right here is a brand new rental unit. Somebody who lives up north may look at that and say, oh, it's a brand new rental unit. If you're a Floridian, you know what a brand new rental unit means. Rental units, especially duplexes, means that it's a bedroom community. It means you live in Spring Hill, but you work in Tampa, which is a very long commute. So you drive by a neighborhood and you might say everybody has new cars and all the units are brand new. That's the way they interpret it. However, somebody who is more familiar with the area interprets that information a little bit differently. The reason many people have brand new cars in Spring Hill is because they have a very long commute to Tampa. You'll notice that in some parts of Spring Hill, most people have at least 2 brand new cars. And that is because their commute to Tampa is very long and very hard on vehicles, so they have to have 2 new vehicles. Of course, it puts you into a rat race situation. You have to have 2 brand new cars to get to work, and you got this big house or new duplex that you live in, but now you're not spending time in your new house, you're spending all your time at work, and you're not really driving your car to explore the beautiful natural views of Florida. You're stuck on a traffic jam heading to Tampa 5 or 6 days a week, and that is where people are mistaken. Just because the houses are new, just because everybody has new cars, doesn't exactly mean they're living picture-perfect lifestyles. The stress of most residents is high. Most people are not content with how they're living. I have friends who enjoy their life in the rural parts. Just north of Spring Hill is Brooksville, and they live in Spring Hill, but in a Brooksville address. It's a little bit quieter there. However, I know several people there who have to take a commute all the way to Sarasota or the Villages because they can't find work locally that pays enough to keep up with their lifestyles. Therefore, there isn't really a lot of employment. If you look at Spring Hill, it's mostly all residential. So if you're retiring, it might really work for you. You know, what I tell people is if you're in a big city up north where jobs pay better and you haven't been able to save money and accomplish anything there, what makes you think you're going to accomplish money in one of these bedroom communities where your job is 60 miles away from your home and where you have to keep up a car and a house just to get to work? It just doesn't make sense, and a lot of people don't know what they're getting into. There are not too many jobs. It's a residential area. It's really nice for retired people, but it's really not good for the regular working class person. Around the outskirts, of Spring Hill, and what's weird about Spring Hill is there isn't really like a hood. It's not really like there's a particular neighborhood that's bad, but there are rougher spots. Around Northcliffe, where it meets with Mariner in the center of town, there's a bunch of duplexes and apartments. That doesn't look really good to me. I don't like Northcliffe at all. What I would recommend is that you stay away at least 2 blocks away from the main roads, because the main roads have sidewalks. So all of the walking traffic, all the foot traffic goes along the main roads. I would really recommend you're somewhere east of Mariner and west of Veterans, somewhere in there. Seems like where the newer houses are, a little bit more spaced out. Along US 19 is horrible. And once you get into Tampa, Hudson, Holiday, Newport Richey, heading south along US 19. It is one of the most drug-ridden and disappointing areas in the entire state of Florida. And you're going to find that as soon as you get out of Spring Hill city limits, it's kind of country and rural, and there's a lot of poverty. So there's a lot of like southern redneck people who are just really living in poverty. A lot of people that dropped out of school, don't have a lot of education. You know, they'll drive around in 1983 Blazer or something like that. I don't know. Just, you know, if you're from up north, you may be really sensitive to that. You may not feel comfortable around that. And believe me, they don't like Northerners. So probably want to stick within city limits if you're moving into Spring Hill. I wouldn't recommend the rural outskirts, Shady Hills, north too far into Brooksville. I would kind of keep it right in the city if you're not familiar with the area, because it is a very southern area. Now, most of the people in Spring Hill, a good percentage of them are retired people from New York, from Connecticut, from Boston. There's a lot of northeastern people in Spring Hill, which is good for you if you're coming from that area. You'll be able to experience the food. There's a lot of businesses that are aimed at people like you, so you will feel comfortable. You will feel at home. There's a lot of businesses catered to people just like you because there's just a massive percentage of the population. And you should know that the local residents really don't like the northeastern people coming into town. There's too many of them, and there's just two different types of people, and they really don't get along. So just be prepared for that. And again, if you're thinking just because it's a white little heaven and everybody's white, that you're not going to run into drugs and crime, you're going to be into a sorry awakening of reality. No, there are not actual hoods. The living conditions in Spring Hill for poor people are actually pretty high, probably one of the highest for the entire state. It's a place that's really made for regular working class people. A lot of Latin businesses have started to move in. Not only are you having an influx of New Yorkers, Connecticut's, you're also having a lot of Puerto Ricans, a lot of Latinos from Miami, Orlando, Tampa, and also from the Northeast, other places like Ohio and Pennsylvania. So you have a huge influx of Latinos, so you're starting to see a lot of food trucks, you're starting to see a lot of Latin markets, a lot of Latin grocery stores, and I think the percentage of Puerto Ricans in the area will continue to increase. When I first went to Spring Hill, there were no Latinos there. Now there's Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Dominicans. There's a lot of Latinos moving into the area, and they're coming with a little bit of money. They're not illegals. They're definitely not illegals. They're U.S. citizens for the most part, and they have a good chunk of money. They likely are doing exactly what the New Yorkers are doing, which is you sell your house, you make $100,000 off the equity, and that buys you a house outright with some money left over in Spring Hill. So you have a lot of people from Florida, Latinos from Florida in the Northeast, and people from the Northeast that basically just made some equity money off their house, and now they're using that to have a paid-off lifestyle. And there's a lot of people doing that, and it brings a lot of small businesses to the area. If you're thinking about starting a business in Spring Hill, I think there's a saturation of the same types of businesses because everybody who moves to Florida is pretty much thinking the same exact thing. And keep in mind, guys, this is Florida. So there's Florida man. If you watch the news, Florida man stuff. It's happening out here, guys. You will meet some characters. I like to go to the Walmart on 50, which is between Brooksville and Spring Hill. And you'll see people with their hair dyed all types of colors. A lot of people use their bodies as a platform for expressing their views with tattoos and ear piercings. And you really see some really interesting people. It is Florida. And even though there's a lot of people moving from up north, it does have a very Florida man type of feel. It's definitely a Florida man town, if you get what I'm saying. So you will meet some interesting people. You watch the news reports from Spring Hill, and you'll get to see a lot of people who are clearly not in their right mind. So you will get that in Spring Hill. In some parts of Florida, you don't get it. This is definitely a Florida man town. You will definitely encounter a naked man in a parking lot attacking people with an iguana, or I don't know what happens, but you'll definitely encounter some weird stuff. It is Florida, and it is a hood, not so much structurally a hood place, but culturally, Spring Hill is a very hood place. If you look at the drug raids, drug arrests, Citrus County to the north, Hernando County, Pasco County. I mean, you're right next to Pasco County. A lot of people think that Orlando, Jacksonville, and Miami have the highest crime rates in Florida. People, go to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. They have a website that breaks down crime for the entire state of Florida. The highest crime district in the entire state of Florida is number 1, Pinellas County, which is where St. Petersburg and Clearwater sit, and Pasco County. It's one district. Pinellas and Pasco has the highest crime rate in every single category: prostitution, larceny, burglary, violent crime. Just about every other. The only other area where Dade County is higher is in fraud, and also Broward County is second. So Broward County is the whitest of the southeast Florida areas, and Pasco County and Pinellas are some of the whitest counties in the state of Florida as far as urban areas go. So you have white ghetto people, white hood people, and the highest crime rate statistically in the state of Florida. So this is not my opinion. This is statistically, Pasco and Pinellas County, which is just south of Spring Hill, has the highest crime rate in almost every single category in the entire state of Florida. This is where people's preconceived prejudice and actual hard facts come to a reality that there's a lot of crime in this area. Spring Hill, if you watch Cops, Live PD, they have Pasco County, which is just south of Spring Hill. And you can watch the type of things that happen. Lots of drug use, just lots of weird police cases, family disputes with weapons, all types of ill crap. You can catch it here. The White Hoods of America. This is definitely the capital of that. Then those people who come here and think that the locals are racist, because not only are people coming to Florida who are racist and who are prejudiced, but then they think the locals are actually the ones that are racist and prejudiced, and the locals could care less. So it's people who are extremely prejudiced who think that other people are prejudiced. Therefore, they had wrong notions in their mind. They had a prejudice about the area that they didn't understand, and in the long run, they find out the reality of what they did, and it's a very disappointing thing for them. That's why for a lot of people, Spring Hill becomes a huge disappointment, because they had an expectation that just wasn't realistic of the area. So moving on to restaurants. The people of Spring Hill and Brooksville were really happy when the extension and kind of resurfacing of Highway 50 was done, and also a lot of new businesses were brought in. Applebee's, Chili's, Texas Roadhouse. Before that, all the area had was like a Chinese buffet next to Marshall's, and like there's a little sub place, Philly cheesesteak place. It was all in Spring Hill. Really had like 3 restaurants. Now there's a lot more restaurants, but there's nothing really high end or fancy. It's basically just regular stuff. Your Wendy's, your Taco Bell, your Texas Roadhouse, your McDonald's, Applebee's, just regular restaurants like that. Nothing incredible. It's not like Naples or Miami where you get more niche stuff, more high-end upscale dining. You have all the basic stuff, which is good. It's a great start for the area that they finally have decent restaurants. For most people, the Texas Roadhouse is probably what they consider upscale, or what they consider a nice night out would be at the Texas Roadhouse. So it's nothing fancy, but it's got the basic stuff now. And there is a lot of small businesses. There's a lot of food trucks. The food truck culture comes from the city of Tampa. Even though you're not in Tampa, this is kind of like a northern suburb of Tampa. So there's a lot of cultural influence from Tampa. I don't know if you guys knew this, but the Cuban sandwich isn't really a Cuban thing. It's a Tampa thing. And Cuban press sandwiches are really popular all along the Spring Hill area. It was one of the few street foods many years back, and now it's even more popular than ever. The people of this area, they really like their street food. There's a lot of Cuban food trucks, Mexican food trucks, and now they have Jamaican restaurants. Mexican restaurants. So there's starting to be a much more mix of cultures there, and Puerto Rican food trucks as well. You're going to see these all over Spring Hill. Usually they're food trucks, and they're going to have pressed Cuban sandwiches. And like I said, it's more of a Tampa thing than a Cuban thing. If you want a more Cuban-style restaurant, there's a restaurant, which I'll show you guys a photo of the outside later on in the video. There's a restaurant called La Lechonera, which is on County Line Road on the south side of Spring Hill. And that's where I like to go. I don't like to do a lot of street food when I travel, but this is like a sit-down restaurant, and they're really good. I believe they're out of Tampa, and they finally opened up a store there in Spring Hill. So a lot of the culture, Tampa is one of the best places for food, one of the best places for street food. So if you're into that, and the other thing is, you can take, it's a 60 to 80 mile drive to get into Tampa. It's like a 60-mile drive to Tampa or a 50-mile drive to Tampa. And once you get into Tampa, you have Colombian, Cuban, just a huge mix of foods that you can try, as well as European and other foods. Like I said, this little cheesesteak place was one of the original restaurants in Spring Hill when I first visited. Every time you go to Spring Hill, it's different. It's a really fast-growing town. I'll go there every 3 to 6 months, and every time I go there, new stuff's popping in, new restaurants. It's a really fast-changing place, which is good. There's a lot of businesses going in, and they're starting to build houses again. So it's a really up-and-coming area. As far as real estate investment goes, I would be skeptical to invest too much money there, simply because the people that are moving there, they're not wealthy. They're kind of middle class. Now, that's not a bad thing either. Lehigh Acres here in my area in Southwest Florida really kicked off due to just working class, middle class, just regular working people made the real estate in Lehigh pop off. And the Spring Hill area is still affordable. I mean, what you can get for $150,000 or $160,000 in Spring Hill would be almost double that in Southwest Florida. So if you really want to enjoy that large house, newer 10-year-old house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a pool, this might be the place to do it. If having that new house on top of a little hill with a brand new driveway, 2-car garage, if that is really important to you, you really want to experience decent living standards for a good price in an area that is not, because I don't want to overrate the crime. It's a quiet, peaceful place. But I want you to know that it's there, and it's not like you have to have metal bars on your windows or you can't leave something outside. It's not like that bad. Like I said, it's not hood, but there is a criminal element, and most of that criminal element is going to be within the commercial areas and within more heavily dense populated areas. You'll probably want to look for a quiet street with some trees, with some hills, and you'll get that house. You'll get the peace and tranquility. You will get it if you're able to find a house that's kind of a little bit pushed away from the more urban areas. And there's still spots in Spring Hill that are a little bit more secluded. I would definitely recommend that. You'll get your peace. You'll get your security. You'll get that nice house for an incredible price. So I don't want to kind of over-exaggerate the crime situation there. It's not like Fort Lauderdale in Spring Hill. It's not like living in inner city Tampa. It's nothing like that, okay? These are nice suburban areas. There's just a drug problem. And I don't want to say I over-exaggerated, but I want you to be aware of it, okay? I don't want you to come into this with a misconception that you're not going to deal with crime. I think it's about finding a quiet little street. I wouldn't want to be like on Mariner or Norcliffe, right on the main roads. I would probably want to be, 3 or 4 blocks away from all that on a little quiet street, maybe next to an empty lot or something like that, where you can really get that peace, quiet, and tranquility. So I'm definitely not trying to scare you away from Spring Hill. I'm just letting you know some of the stuff you're going to encounter there. And if you're coming from like Philadelphia, where you have like Kensington, where there's hundreds of crackheads and people laying on the street injecting heroin needles, this is going to seem like a paradise to you. Of course it will. But if you're more refined, like I've lived in Naples for 20 years, I'm a little bit more sensitive than somebody coming from Philadelphia. If you're coming from a small little rural town somewhere where there's no crime, then you may find it to be a little bit more urban than you would want. So it's just about perspective, about where you're coming from. And sometimes people come on my channel and they say, oh, you think this is hood? You don't know what a hood is, because I'm from Baltimore, or I'm from Philadelphia, and we got real hoods. Okay, what these people don't understand about Florida, okay, because like we have Lehigh Acres here in Southwest Florida. It's all beautiful brand. It looks just like Spring Hill. All brand new houses, paved roads, and people from Baltimore, Philadelphia, those places, they look at it and they come and they'll comment on my videos, because I do a lot of drive arounds. So if you're looking for more information on Florida, please check out the rest of my channel. I do a lot of driving around videos to show what neighborhoods actually look like. And I want to do one for Spring Hill. I just haven't been able to do it yet. Guys, Florida is a massive state. I hear you. Orlando, Jacksonville, you're telling me come and do Tampa, come and do our neighborhood, Melbourne, Palm Bay, the whole east coast of Florida. Guys, Florida is a massive state. I'll get to you eventually, okay? Just be a little bit patient with me. So Lehigh Acres, brand new houses. What could possibly go wrong? These hoods don't look bad at all. I get these comments every single day on my channel. I had a person that I knew that lived in Lehigh Acres. He had his house broken into 10 times. They had him on a schedule. They knew when he went to work, and they broke into his house and stole his TV 10 times. That is not something. It doesn't matter if the houses are new. It doesn't matter if it doesn't look bad. If you are in an area where people are gangsters and they're criminals, they will get to you. And just because they're not living in an old house with plywood on the windows doesn't mean that they're not a bunch of crooks and thugs. Well, a lot of times people see Spring Hill and they see all these beautiful new houses. They automatically assume that this is some beautiful suburb, and they don't know that there's gangsters in there too. Spring Hill is just like Lehigh. These are communities where they built the roads, and then later on at some point the lots were filled in, houses came. So first they kind of laid out the neighborhood. It's very similar to Lehigh in that sense. I work at the landfill. I have a junk removal company, and I go to the landfill in Lehigh. I talk to the people that work there. This guy in Lehigh lives in a private gated community. He's had his house broken into twice. So don't just look at the cover and say, okay, new houses, it's going to be safe. There's a lot of ways to scope out neighborhoods. When I've considered Spring Hill myself for a while just because of the affordability. I can get out of a mobile home in Naples, which I own now, and buy a really decent house in Spring Hill. So I've been considering it for a while. But you know what, guys? A house, to me, isn't that important. Yes, you live in it, but there's more to life than just a house. I live near the beaches. By the way, there are no beaches in Spring Hill. Remaining of this clip is going to be just showing you guys pigeons. That's how I initially became familiar with the Spring Hill area, because the Spring Hill area has a pigeon racing club, which is the largest in the entire country. A lot of members from up north, because of the weather here in Florida, have pretty much considered Spring Hill to be a perfect place for that. And I started my first YouTube channel on pigeon racing, and because Spring Hill is the capital of pigeon racing. Now, it's not within the city limits. It's on the south border of the city in Shady Hills, and in Brooksville, an area called Sunshine Grove is where all the pigeon racers are. And there's about 150 of these people that are into this hobby and are part of organizations. And I became really familiar working with the pigeon clubs there. So there's me just hanging out with some of my pigeon buddies up there. So I'm really familiar with the area. One of the downsides, like I said, it's just beaches. There are no actual beaches. Now there's a coastline, and you can do some boating. Boating in this part of Florida is not for the inexperienced. I went on the Homosassa River. The currents are strong. The bottom is rocky in a lot of places, so you can break the propeller. You can break the boat pretty much if you're not paying attention. So it is a very difficult area to navigate. But you know, you can just take a ride down to Clearwater when you're ready to go to the beach. You're not going to go to the beach every day. Going to the beach every day is like for people who are really wealthy, to be honest. I live 2 miles from the beach. I could ride a bicycle to the beach every day if I wanted to, where I could walk there. I do it now because of the YouTube channel, so that I can show off the beach to other people. But realistically, you're not going to go to the beach every single day. So how important that's going to be for you is kind of, I don't know how important it's really going to be. But you can ride down to Clearwater when you're going to go to the beach, and you're going to pay a lot of money. What people don't get about being near the beach is you're going to pay, you know, your $150,000 house is going to be a $400,000 house. So are you really going to pay $200,000 to live near the water? You know what you could do with $200,000? For 200 nights, you could stay at $1,000 hotel on the beach. I mean, if you're going to enjoy the beach, let's say 4 times a year, rent a hotel in Miami or something on the beach, or in Tampa and Clearwater on the beach, and just pay to be on the beach, you know, like get a resort on the beach a few times a year. It might be $3,000 or $4,000. That's a whole lot cheaper than the $250,000 more your house is going to cost if it's on the water. That's what I do. Like, I live near the beach, but I mean, if it was important to me and I couldn't afford it, or even if I could afford it, it just makes sense, you know, just to go on a resort. You know, like there's resorts all over Florida. Just go to a resort a few times a year if you really want to enjoy the beach. It's only going to be a 2-hour drive at most. You know what I mean? So you don't have beaches in Spring Hill, but are you really going to go to the beach every single day? I mean, how important is that really? Is it important enough to pay $200,000 more? I don't know. At least to me, it's not. And you know, the other thing is, if you're looking at it from an investment perspective, you know, the purchase of your home as an investment, I stayed in Naples because Naples is rich people and all that, and I was scared to invest in Spring Hill because Spring Hill back then wasn't all that glamorous, and the real estate in Spring Hill doubled. I was afraid of Lehigh Acres because Lehigh Acres was vacant, it was hood, and it wasn't that attractive, and the Lehigh real estate went up 67%. So I stayed in Naples because I thought it would be a better investment because it's a wealthier area. Guys, real estate is unpredictable. An area that can appear to be bad now can turn good. An area that can be apparently glamorous like Naples could flip upside down overnight. The market could get saturated with the type of property you buy, and then now you're stuck with this property you can't sell, which is the reason I haven't been able to move out of Naples now. I'm going for 1.5 years on the market, and I still can't get rid of this property because there's just no buyers for this type of property. So what you think in real estate is good may not actually be good. So if you're looking at the purchase of your home as an investment, just buy something you like, a place where you're going to be happy and hope for the best, because it's unpredictable. A place like Lehigh, which was horrible, Spring Hill wasn't all that desirable, and look at it now. People are moving there by the thousands of people are moving there. The real estate is growing. The prices went up. Now they're building new houses. Who would have foreseen all that coming? You know, it could have been anywhere. It could have been, I don't know. But if you're looking at it from an investment point of view, it's unpredictable, really. Who knows where? If we knew where the real estate was going to go next, then we would all be buying that real estate. The thing is, we don't know. Now with this channel, I can kind of perceive that a flow of people into Cape Coral, Spring Hill, Lehigh, kind of more affordable places, is going to be more concentrated as far as numbers of people than in places like Naples, where only a few elite people can afford to get in. So the market is more limited because it's more upscale. So it's possible that Spring Hill could continue to grow, and that land could get more scarce there. It's definitely possible. There's a lot of people considering to move there, and the more people move there, the more they tell their friends, the more people continue to come down to an area. So real estate is really unpredictable. Who really knows what area is going to be more popping off or anything like that? So don't look at it from a real estate perspective. What's nice about Spring Hill is because it's a city, you're not going to get all the HOA fees and all these expensive, ridiculous fees that are making areas like Naples, where it's all country clubs and gated communities, less attractive to people. You can go to any gym of your choice in Spring Hill. You can join all types of clubs and hobbies and sports without having to pay for it through a community. A lot of people are just moving into places like that where, yeah, they want the amenities, but you can join a gym in Spring Hill. There's a lot of gyms to join, and you can buy your own boat. You don't exactly have to be in a yacht club to go boating, etc. So it's really attractive for a lot of people just because it's a city. You don't have all those fees. You don't have all that crap that makes a lot of areas unaffordable. So if you're coming from New York, your money goes a lot further in a place like Spring Hill, where you're within a city, you're not within a community, you don't have to pay all that crap, everything's accessible. It's a great place for people retiring and they want to stretch their money really far. That's why so many people from the Northeast have moved here, because you can really do it there, especially when it comes to housing. And another thing about Spring Hill is the weather. It's really nice for the most part. It does get cold. It doesn't snow here, but it's in the northern region of Florida. It's a normal thing for you in the morning to have like ice build up around your windshield and stuff, and then by like 11:30 in the afternoon, it's already melted. But it doesn't snow, but it does get really, really cold. But I like the cold weather a little bit. It's nice to have some type of seasonal change. It's not as defined as up north, but definitely. The weather's nice. It's cold. It gets cold. I'll tell you that. It'll get into like the 20s, overnight. So it does get cold, but it's not ridiculous. It's not going to snow, hopefully. I don't think it's ever snowed there that I can recall. I mean, it snowed in Miami or in Fort Lauderdale like in the 70s, so it could happen. But in general, you're not going to have to worry about snow or shoveling snow off your driveway. It gets a little cold. It's not ridiculous, but it does get cold. The last thing we're going to address is sinkholes. I know you're probably wondering why I haven't mentioned sinkholes yet. Pretty much, guys, if if the house is cracked, if the driveway's cracked, you can almost kind of tell if you're going to have, you can even look at maps. You can go on maps online. They have sinkhole maps. So you can get a really good idea of where the sinkholes are happening. And there's like ridges where you get them. Yeah, this is a lot. Everywhere there's a lot of sinkholes. It's very true. But guys, come on, every area that you move to is going to have a hazard. If it's not a tornado, it's a snowstorm, it's a sinkhole. You could live in the safest place in the world and an airplane could land on your house and kill you while you're sleeping at night. I mean, you could go outside and get ran over by a bus one day. There's everywhere you live is going to have some hazards. So as far as sinkhole goes, just use some common sense. If the walls are cracked, if the floor is cracked, if the driveway is cracked, it's probably got a sinkhole nearby or in the future or something. Maybe Spring Hill is the perfect place for you, and maybe if you move there, your house is never going to sink into a sinkhole, and now you're going to scrutinize the area. Is that a word? It sounds like, is that a word? I don't know what I just said. Anyways, you're going to judge the area because, your house could fall into a sinkhole. I know a lot of people who moving to Spring Hill would be the absolute perfect scenario for their lifestyle, for what they need, and then they don't do it because my house could fall into a sinkhole. Anything could happen in life. If it's going to happen to you, it's going to happen to you. Don't let sinkholes scare you away from this area, but do some research on what they're about and how to tell and what areas it's more likely to happen in. Guys, you can go online and you can look at sinkhole maps, and it'll give you a really good indication of what areas have ridges where there's more sinkholes. Yes, it's a real concern, but I think a lot of times people take reasons that are insignificant and then turn it into massive, reasons that outweigh all types of common sense. That's my thoughts for the day. I hope you guys enjoyed the video.